All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the Monday night two-game slate, Week 7. We have the Detroit Lions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks. In this video, like we normally do, we'll talk about the injuries that impact tonight's slate. There are quite a few to discuss, including a few game time decisions. And then we'll go over the normal short slate strategies that have helped us win lots of GPPs on these short slates and see which ones are the best fit for tonight. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. And this is a live stream. So if you're watching live, what's up? Welcome. Say hi in the chat box. Even if you're just stopping by and you're just viewing, go ahead and say hi in the chat, see some engagement, show your support for the channel. Again, any questions you have along the way. You guys will lead the show. I have the structure of injuries and then strategies, but questions you have along the way, we will certainly get into it. We just got news right before, and I mean minutes before I went live, that Emeka Egbuka, the receiver for the Buccaneers, is expected to play. I guess his pregame warm-up went pretty well, and quite the turnaround. Left last week's game with that hamstring injury. Typically, hamstring injuries are pretty tricky, and I'm not a professional athlete, but I know this from experience as well. And anytime you leave a game and don't return, and then you only get in one limited practice, I would probably say the odds of you playing is like 1% the following week. Egbuka is bucking that trend, so sounds like he'll give it a go tonight. We'll know for sure at what 5:45, I guess, once we get official inactives. But let's monitor him. We'll talk about all this here in a second. Let's see who's in the chat so far. Gabriel has a lot to say. Thanks, Gabriel, for chiming in. Patrick in the chat. What's up, man? JPT, of course. Artie, all-star point guard. Frozen Meats says he can only win if it's me. I'll do my best, Frozen. I got you. George, Anthony, appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. George says, are you still doing UFC? Yeah, I'm still playing every week. Shout out to our guy Nick, who's doing our streams here on the channel. Make sure if you play UFC DFS, you're watching his shows on Saturday afternoon. So shout out to Nick. Just running behind the scenes stuff for UFC and playing myself. So, all right, guys. Jeffrey also says hello. What's up, Jeffrey? And Matt, long time. Matt, what's up, man? All right, guys. Let's start with the first game. First, by the way, one game at 7, one game at 10. East Coast guys were in trouble tonight with the 10 o'clock game. But it does, unlike the last couple of two-game slates, it gives us a pretty nice opportunity to late swap. We won't know for sure exactly what we need. There will probably be a little bit of overlap between the end of the first game and the beginning of the second game, but we'll have a rough idea, and we could talk about some late swap opportunities if you have any questions. Another good reason to join our Discord, by the way, where situations are different, and we're not really into helping lineups pre-lock, but you don't really get many late swap opportunities, so you may have a lot of questions there, so we can help you out in Discord later tonight if you're up and watching the games. All right, we'll start with the visiting Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Mike Evans expected back tonight. Dealt with his own hamstring injury. Missed a few weeks. We got the word a couple hours ago that he would be officially good to go. Egbuka, we just talked about at the top of the show. He's expected to play. I'm not so sure we see him on a full snap count, excuse me. We'll see. Chris Godwin remains out. Sterling Shepard will be the slot guy, number 3 wide receiver. If we look at the snaps last week, again, this was without Mike Evans, so let's keep this in mind. It was Tez Johnson, 22. These are routes run, by the way, not snaps. 22 for Tez Johnson. Sterling Shepard, 21. Egbuka, remember, left the game early. He ran 17. Cam Johnson ran 12, and Ryan Miller ran 3 routes. So, yeah, it's going to be Evans and Egbuka, assuming they're healthy, and then Shepard, number 3. And if Egbuka is limited at all, or Evans is limited at all, I don't think Evans will be. I think if he waited this long, he's probably good to go. But if Egbuka is limited at all, we'll see Tez Johnson probably mix in. The question here now is, we ran ownership this morning in our model, and we had the expectation that Egbuka was going to be out for this game. And it looked like the field, with that assumption in mind, was going to go heavily to Sterling Shepard and specifically Tez Johnson. Now I'm not so sure. With 2 minutes of digestion, not sure where the field goes tonight. Maybe it just all goes to Sterling Shepard, which it could. We're running behind the scenes now, and we'll have an ownership update once inactives come out at 5:45. Still trying to figure it out. Curious to see what you guys think. What else here? At running back for Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving remains out, of course. Rashad White, the lead back in his stead. Rashad White, 41 snaps last week to just 12 for Sean Tucker. We know Sean Tucker has had a game, literally a single game, as the number 2 running back where he's broken a slate. And seemingly the past couple of 2-game slates, backup running backs have done the trick. Might be a little trickier tonight. But we have some split backfields, so I could see a situation where in large fields, Sean Tucker scores a touchdown and ends up in the optimal lineup, especially tonight because pricing is super tough. So don't necessarily hate that. We could see his ownership bump up a little bit as a result, as we're looking for value. Luke Haggard, their right guard, is out. And I would say downgrade, but it's kind of like the Chargers situation where they've already had so many injuries. Like, what's one more injury at this point? So just another knock on the Tampa Bay offensive line tonight. They do return cornerback Zion McCollum, so now their secondary is fully healthy, so a little bit of a bump to Tampa Bay's passing defense. All right, let's see. What else we got in here? Kayla in the chat. What's up, Kayla? Mike says, crazy that Marks cost more than Chubb and Charbonnet. Let's just look at running backs really quickly before we continue with the injury section. Yeah, Woody Marks, 5,200. Chubb, 5,000. Charbonnet, 5,100. Marks, more guaranteed passing down work. Probably a better game script for him tonight. He still played more snaps than Nick Chubb in that game against Baltimore in a blowout. And Marks is more of the passing down back, more of the change of pace. So it was still a nice, despite his box score not reflecting that workload against Baltimore, just 2.4 fantasy points. He actually got the workload we probably would have won it in any game script. And tonight, as a road dog against Seattle, we should see him play more than Nick Chubb. So I understand the pricing for once. The pricing is extremely tight tonight. Let's see. Gabe, you got a lot to say, buddy. You should start your own channel, it seems like, because you got a lot to say, and we appreciate the engagement for sure. So thank you. And anytime anyone has strong takes, we always appreciate that. Matt says, with Houston having a strong defense and a bad offensive line against a good Hawks pressure, I can see fading that game mostly. But is that what the field is going to do? Yeah, I think so. And we'll talk about this in the game stacking section. But yes, that's what the field is going to do. And I think, and Bismo wrote this pretty nicely in today's Daily Plug. It's either we embrace it and we stack the shit out of that game and we overstack it, or we cross our fingers and probably lose money and stack the second game. We'll talk about that here in the strategy section. But I think, especially if you're playing anything small, I lean towards the first option. So, all right, let's see here. All right, we talked about Tampa Bay. Let's go to Detroit. Detroit still dealing with a massive amount of injuries and absences in their defensive backfield. Safety Brian Branch suspended, which you probably shouldn't be surprised if you saw the end of the game against Kansas City. Their other safety, Kirby Joseph, is out. They're already down 2 starting corners in Avonte Maddox and Terran Arnold. So upgrade Tampa Bay's pass offense, which they don't need any upgrade the way Baker's been playing. But with Mike Evans back, Egbuka apparently playing, it's going to be the perfect setup for them tonight. Offensive tackle Taylor Decker has missed the last couple of games for the Lions. He is trending towards playing. At least that's what head coach Dan Campbell said tonight. So that's another reason why this game could be the extra shootout if we get extra help on the offensive line. For Detroit, we saw a little bit of a struggle last week against Kansas City without Taylor Decker. So Taylor Decker being on the field tonight will certainly give us more reason to stack this game up. Their defensive tackle, DJ Reader, is questionable. We do expect him to play. Let's just monitor inactives here in, 40 minutes, 35 minutes? So, all right, moving on to the second game, injuries that impact the slate. Houston, wide receiver Christian Kirk is out. Missed the first couple of weeks of the season, came back, re-injured that hamstring, it sounds like. Texas reporter Aaron Wilson, who was pretty tuned in, and I would call him a national reporter. He has a lot of sources. And in his article on, I think it was Friday, where he talked about Christian Kirk's absence, said that specifically Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, they will complement Nico Collins in Christian Kirk's absence. But he specifically said there was one line in his article that said Jalen Noel is expected to be the primary slot guy with Kirk out. This is something we kind of hoped for in our best ball drafts. And we saw him catch the touchdown in week 5 against Baltimore. And maybe because of Egbuka being in, and Tampa Bay's receivers being their values kind of decimated now with the top 2 guys back, maybe we see more ownership shifts to these Houston guys. But as of right now, we really don't have much ownership on Jalen Noel specifically. So I think if we're looking, if we're playing pretty chalky elsewhere, we're trying to find one low-owned piece. I think Jalen Noel could be that guy tonight, especially considering Seattle still might be without 2 of their starting 4 secondary guys. Reek Woolen is expected to be back, but Devon Witherspoon corner and Julian Love, their safety, both are questionable. Seattle called up both a corner and a safety, which would seem to indicate that those guys would be out tonight. So Jalen Noel could be the guy. Again, let's just see ownership. If you're a member of OccupyFantasy.com, make sure you refresh the ownership 545, 550, and we'll see. Let's see here. Jason says Sterling Shepard or Jaden Higgins. So yeah, Sterling Shepard's going to be on the field more. We'll likely see more targets. Let's see. I think he probably has the better median projection. I don't mind Higgins though, especially if he's going to get more snaps with Christian Kirk out. Let's see. James in the chat. What's up, James? All right, guys, we got through the injuries. We're here for another 30 minutes or so, 20 minutes maybe. It depends on your questions. However many questions you guys have, we'll stick around. I'll stick around. Inactives will come at, well, actually, I just realized the game starts at 7, so we'll get inactives at 5:30. So by the time this show is ending, we will probably get some inactive news, and we'll get official word on Emeka Egbuka. All right, let's talk about the strategies now that we look at 2-game slates. Game stacking, mega stacking, leaving salary on the table, playing low-owned players. Which of the 3 are the most viable tonight? Realistically, it's game stacking, mega stacking, playing a bunch of guys from one game. Then it's playing low-owned players. And far and away worse is leaving salary on the table. And I know the last time we had a 2-game slate, which was exactly a week ago, I said we don't want to leave salary on the table. And the optimal lineup was like $4,400 left over. That is not, I know that was an anomaly. That is not the case tonight. Pricing is so tight. It's really hard to leave salary on the table. Now, again, if you're playing the large field GPP, you're playing 150 max, yeah, you could probably open up a little bit and just be really cognizant of how you're leaving salary on the table. But if you're building 20 lineups, 3 to 5 lineups, I would try to use most of the salary cap tonight and just get different by mega stacking and playing low-owned players. And we'll dive into each of those individually. Let's see. Yeah, and people in the chat are talking about Egbuka. Yeah, Egbuka is expected to play. I just want to get official word with inactives. Yeah, his pregame workout went great. I'm still pretty shocked, as I said at the top of the show, when you have this type of injury, leaving the game with a hamstring, only 1 limited practice, you basically never play. So we'll see how truly active he is. All right, now let's talk about game stacking. In the field, as Matt asked earlier, and as Bismo, one of our Showdown writers, wrote in today's daily plug at OccupyFantasy.com, the field is going to heavily build Tampa Bay, Detroit, as they should. And this doesn't even factor in Detroit's defensive injuries, Tampa Bay getting healthier. Game is a higher total. And actually, let's see here. Can I pull up the model really quickly? Yeah, this is the defensive model for the defenses, and we'll just see here. I'll scroll over. Yeah, first game, total of 52.5. Second game, total of 41.5. So, yeah, 11 points higher. Yeah, we should want to stack the first game. But everyone knows that. And it gets really tough to stack a second game. I think that the best advice, right, and it depends on how much you like money, how risk adverse you are. But if you're playing anything small field, even medium field, or you have no risk tolerance, just super stack this first game, Tampa Bay, Detroit. Now, if you're building 150 and you have really high risk tolerance, or you're building 20 max, and I would say the strategy is even better for 20 max, because you only have a certain set of lineups still against a larger field. You fade the first game, hope either scoring is concentrated or a bust, and you stack the second game. Again, on a pure median outcome, it's not going to work out. But again, we're not looking for median outcomes in big tournaments. So I think that's how I would lean. And I built some lineups earlier, and all my small field stuff was stacking the first game. A lot of my large field stuff, where I try to get different, I was stacking the second game. So yeah. So let me see. Rez in the chat says, how would you go about building a single entry tonight? So let's just build one here, and I'll show you. And we'll talk about the game stacking aspect. So Tampa Bay, Detroit. And when I say game stacking, the field is probably going to build 4-1, 4-2 stacks on DraftKings. So that's 4 players from one team, including their quarterback, 1 to 2 opponents. I truly think in smaller contests, we should build more than that. 5 players from one team, 2 or 3 guys from the opposing team. So how would that look? So let's say we like Detroit. Our model has Jared Goff number 1 tonight. We'll play with Jared Goff. I don't mind Mayfield either, especially with his guys back. So let's go Goff. We'll go with his top receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We'll go with Laporta. We'll go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, and we'll see how this looks. And we'll go J-Mo. So this is a really big stack, right? Maybe we'll go double tight end, and we'll go Cade Otton. Let's bring a defense in from the second game. We'll go the popular Seattle. That's fine. And then Tampa Bay, Rachaad White. 5,900 left per player. And now we could play Cooper Kupp. We could play one of these other receivers and upgrade. Let's try this. Let's just say we like Jalen Noel, right? Remember, he was a low-owned guy we like. Let's go Jalen Noel. And now we can upgrade this double tight end situation. And we can get up to Kenneth Walker, correlation with Seahawks defense, at least 700. That's pretty good. So now we leave 700, which is reasonable. We have a low-owned guy in Jalen Noel, and we 5-2 stack this first game, or 5-1 stack this first game. I really like that idea. Again, we still should try to get 2 Tampa Bay guys in here. We really want to overstack in this first game in small field contests. Let's try the opposite way. Let's try with Baker Mayfield. Either way, I do think this is the appropriate approach. Again, the field is going to build 4-1, 4-2. They're not going to build as often 5-1, 5-2, 5-3. And we should really be doing that on a game that's really ripe for fantasy production. So we go Baker. We go Mike Evans. Let's just say we're not thrilled with Egbuka. We don't think he's fully healthy. And we go Sterling Shepard. Kate Otten. Add in Rashad White. Now for Detroit, we're running back. We'll go a little cheaper here. We'll go David Montgomery. We'll go Amon-Ra St. Brown. Defense. Let's try Houston's defense this time. We're just mixing things up to see how it looks. 5,900 left per player. We can play Marks or Chubb. That's correlation. That's interesting. If we want all the players available, we play Kenneth Walker. Options to go with here. So 5-2, 5-1, 5-3 even. Those are the ways to go tonight for small field. Now, if we're playing large field, we don't have to necessarily overstack this second game. Let's just say we wanted to go Seattle, Houston. But we go Darnold, JSN, Kupp, and Barner or Arroyo. I like that idea. We'll go Arroyo. He's cheaper. Running back with Nico Collins and passing down back Woody Marks. That's a 4-2. That's not necessarily overstacking. It is game stacking, but it's not overstacking like we would the first game. We don't have to 5-man stack this second game. We can allow it. Don't necessarily think we need to do it. And then we can play some of the best guys from Tampa Bay side or Detroit side. Let's say Gibbs gets all the production. Let's say Sterling Shepard's the value play we need. We would probably need another play. Let's play Tampa Bay's defense and let's see. Upgrade here, 7K. Yeah, we can play Evans. Lots of options here. So it opens up for one more spot to upgrade. If you stack the second game, you really need the first game not to shoot out, though, in that scenario. So just to recap, lots of talk here. You're playing less than 500 players. Overstack that first game. 5 players on one side, 2 to 3 from the other side. Now, in FanDuel, what that means is they be in the field, they will 4-man stack because that's the maximum you can do. They will 1- and 2-man stack. So what you want to do is add another, a 4-3 stack, 4-4 stack even. Get crazy. A little bit tougher on FanDuel to overstack given the 4-team limitation, 4-man per team limitation rule that they have over there. Yeah, as Mike says in the chat, Mike Kirchman says, hamstrings are tricky. Wouldn't be surprised if Egbuka and Evans tweak their hammies. Yeah, Egbuka's specifically. Evans is probably out of the re-injury threshold here. He's had a bunch of hamstring injuries. He knows how to handle his. He's now, 3 or 4 weeks out? And given how they've treated him in the past with his hamstrings, they normally don't return him unless that hamstring is fully healed. I would be less concerned about Mike Evans. I'd be extremely concerned about Egbuka, just knowing how hamstring injuries work. Let's see. Patrick says, what's the reason Walker is down in the model? Because they refuse to give him touches. Yeah, they're home favorite here, but if he's going to continue to get 50-50 touches, not getting a ton of passing down work, that's really the reason. But again, it's a 2-game slate. I know they said there was a comment about him maybe getting more work this week because of how he's looked in practice. If you want to take that and run with it, I don't mind, for sure. Danny in the chat says, off topic, wrong sport, but I'm a long-time Occupy UFC sub, and I won the Knockout King for 100K this week, and just want to say thanks. No shit. That's incredible. Send us an email, by the way. I'd love to hear your story and talk about that. That's incredible. Congratulations. Well done. That is no easy feat. The Knockout King is, 6 back-to-back head-to-heads, normally against tougher competition, so that's incredible. Well done. Let's see. Justin says, Darnold, Barner, Kupp stack seems sneaky, could pay out if JSN gets locked up. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, JSN has had otherworldly target share so far this year. Difficult to envision, but weird things happen on 2-game slates. Voga says, first time catching one live. Shout out. Appreciate it. We think Egbuka is playing. Yeah, he's supposed to play according to many reporters. We'll find out for sure here officially in 11 minutes when they release inactives. And by the way, if you guys see inactives, post it in the chat and we'll verify. Also, if you need more narrative, George in the chat says Kenneth Walker's birthday is today. Last birthday, he had 1 rushing, 1 receiving touchdown. So a little birthday narrative for Kenneth Walker for Seattle. Casey says FanDuel low risk. All right, I'll show you really quickly. Before we talk about low ownership and the plays we want to get different with, really the guys I have the most of, and these are the best plays, they're the highest owned guys, and we can fill them in into a low risk lineup. At quarterback, it's either Goff or Mayfield. So we'll go Goff. We'll just save $500 here just to see how it looks. It's Rashad White and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So those two guys. At receiver, it's St. Brown, Evans, Jameson Williams, JSN, Nico Collins. Now, obviously, they're all very expensive, right? So the cheapest of the group is Jameson. And then we have, let's go Nico. We'll go St. Brown. Again, we're not going to be able to fit this in, but I just want to give you the quote-unquote best plays. Defense's most popular ones are Seattle and Houston. We'll go Houston since they're cheaper here. Tight end, it's Laporta, $6K. That leaves us $400 left per player, by the way. So let's see here. Cheapest option? Let's keep scrolling. I do think Noel, by the way, at $4,500 is an option. So at least $4,100 left over. Pricing is extremely tough, especially on FanDuel tonight. So you have to make some difficult decisions. I think I'd probably get rid of Nico here. $4,300. Not enough. St. Brown, tough to not play. Jameson. Let's get Jameson out of here, and let's see what two cheaper receivers look like. And maybe it's Cooper Kupp will be extremely popular on FanDuel. He's probably a low-risk option. Yeah, this is tough, dude. Whew, it gets really tough really quickly. Let's take St. Brown out and see what it looks like. And go Nico. Actually, let's go Jameson. Again, all these are popular plays. 8,000, we could play Mike Evans here, and that's probably the way to go. Some combination of this for low risk for FanDuel. Justin Sports says Tez is still wide receiver 3, right? No. So if Egbuka's in, it's going to be Mike Evans and Egbuka on the outside, and it's going to be Sterling Shepard in the slot. Tez will get any snaps that Egbuka can't play, and he'll mix in some as well. So yeah, it really decimates the value for tonight if Egbuka is indeed in, which it sounds like he is. Chris says Jack wellness check. Yeah, Jack is in the lab working on something that should release this week, by the way. Don't want to tease it and give the wrong date. We want to under promise, over deliver extremely soon for the lineup builder. So Jack's working hard on that. Or maybe he's kidnapped by the NSA, and that's why you always see him in different locations. Matt Love. I have a friend named Matt Love. I don't think it's you, though. Shout out Matt Love. Says, curious to see if Love and Weatherspoon are in for Seattle. Yeah, based on the practice reports, Matt, I thought they were going to be, and then they elevated a corner and safety from the practice squad an hour and a half ago, and that made me rethink that they'll be in. So that would certainly be a big boost to their secondary, two guys that have missed the last couple of games. Sid says, for FanDuel, is your high-dollar quarterback Goff or Baker? Goff is higher in the model, and I think I would go Goff tonight. Yeah, and you save the $500, which apparently you really need on FanDuel. I've never seen pricing this tight, at least not in a while. D Pope says, even on a 2-game slate, should we fade tight end flex? Not necessarily, right? You know, we've shit on that in the past, but 2 tight ends, especially on a slate where we're starved for value, it's normally a positive expected value play. So yeah, I would not fade intentionally. I wouldn't say definitely do it, but certainly open the possibility of playing 2 tight ends in a lineup tonight. Ed, totally not the FBI, with the sharpest comment so far, says he's fading the 10 p.m. game so he can take a screenshot of his billions of winnings at 9:45. Yeah, and imagine the things you can do with a screenshot of billions of winnings. So that's really sharp. Sid says Horton or Noel. I don't have any Seattle exposure. So yeah, Horton, deep guy, got a lot of praise in the preseason. Not running as many snaps and routes. They're playing a lot of 2 tight end sets recently for Seattle with Arroyo and Barner. But Horton can catch a deep ball at any time. I'm just intrigued by Noel and that comment that Aaron Wilson made, the reporter for Houston. Again, we thought either Higgins or Noel would get the nod at the beginning of the season when Christian Kirk started the season with that hamstring injury. It was Xavier Hutchinson ruining everything once again. However, we do have one other thing working in our favor aside from Wilson's comment is Houston is post-bye. Typically, we see rookies get a little bit of a bump post-bye week. Another week of integration. We're now 7 weeks into the season. Rookies we know are more productive second half of the season. We're not necessarily in the second half yet, but early bye week for the Texans. And Aaron Wilson is pretty locked into what Houston is doing. So for him just to say that sentence, it sticks out to me. So I think I would go Noel just based on that. And again, he was a good prospect. Ye win or Y win? Let me know. 4-4 mega stack first game too much? No, I think that's perfect. Yeah, I would probably 5-3 if I could, but 4-4 is totally fine, especially if you're playing FanDuel. Pope says, mostly playing single entries with some shots at 20 max. Should I go all in one game or be open to whatever I get due to the nature of contests I'm playing? Yeah, I would go all in. And maybe single entry, you go all in the first game, 20 max, you go all in the second game. Definitely some options. Either way, on 2-game slates, as Jack will say, if you go back and look at last year's or previous year's 2-game slate videos, if you have a lean, go all in. Because the margins for error are so thin, the margins to win are so thin on 2-game slates. If you think you have an edge or you have a lean, go all in on it to maximize your win condition. All right, let's talk about low-owned plays. I see some more questions in the chat. We'll get to them here in a second. But I talked about the highest-owned guys and my highest exposed plays. But if you look at the low-owned plays at each position, it's C.J. Stroud, which apparently I think Gabe in the chat said is terrible and we should not play. I was getting a little bit of him, and I was getting a lot of him if I put in some larger field contest rules. So C.J. Stroud, we got a lot of cheap, usable options to pair with him. I'm sure he throws for like 127 yards and doesn't work, but I don't mind it. At running back, Nick Chubb will be lower than 20% owned on both sites. Really not playing as much as he was first couple of weeks of the season with Woody Marks' emergence. Chubb not getting a ton of routes run. Likely not a great game script for him. If he gets in the end zone, breaks off a run, he could be optimal. So again, use him in your player pool. Not necessarily as someone I'm looking to target, but if you need a low-owned play, look to mix him in. Woody Marks will be low-owned on, where am I looking here? He'll be low-owned on DraftKings, actually, because I think someone else said it. Why is he priced higher than Chubb and Charbonnet? People will just play Charbonnet instead, but Marks is a good low-owned pivot. He'll be popular on FanDuel, where we need the pricing savings. Who else? Montgomery on DraftKings, Dave Montgomery, 5,500. He'll be relatively low-owned compared to other players around him. And then Sean Tucker, we mentioned. I mean, if we're star for value, we're looking for a 1% play. We're looking for true differentiation. Sean Tucker, a guy who will get 3 to 10 touches, hopefully 5 to 10. Hopefully one of them's a goal line touch, or he just breaks out like that New Orleans game and randomly goes off for 202, whatever the hell he had last year. But Sean Tucker, I think you can do way worse in your 20 max, 150 max to have a couple shares of Sean Tucker. At wide receiver, low-owned plays, this is where I need to check with our team, check with our model, and see where we end up on the ownership changes here. Because before, we had Tez Johnson as the popular value. He won't be now as the wide receiver 4. I think all of it will just go to Sterling Shepard as the wide receiver 3, I'm pretty sure. So Tez now becomes low-owned. And I would probably make a rule of max 1 of Egbuka and Tez Johnson. I'm sure they'll both score touchdowns now that I said that. But his playing time seems directly tied to the availability and health of Emeka Egbuka. So Tez, now probably a great low-owned play with the Egbuka news. And all the Houston wide receivers are going to be low-owned aside from Nico Collins. So who is that? It is Xavier Hutchinson. It is Jaden Higgins. It is Jalen Noel. Again, talked about it a few times already. Jalen Noel is probably the favorite of the group, given the comment from the tuned-in beat reporter. But Higgins, talented guy. Hutchinson will never die. So like mixing all these guys in, especially in Houston stacks or Seattle game stacks. At tight end, we already talked about Laporta being the most popular. Seattle guy, super cheap. A.J. Barner, Elijah Arroyo, both those guys will be under 10% owned. I think maybe Barner gets up a little higher than that, but Arroyo especially, these guys will be super low owned. So looking for a differentiation at tight end, those are 2 guys. And then at defense, they won't be like 5% owned, but the first game, everyone wants to stack up that game. So Lions and Tampa Bay will be the lower owned defenses. Everyone will play instead Seattle and Houston. So you have what the game stacks are. You know what the most popular players are going to be. You want to mix in 1 to 2 of these, maybe 3 of these low owned plays, depending on how large the contest is that you are playing in. Let's get a water sip and we'll check some more questions. Mike says Xavier Hutchins is the number 2 wide receiver, had 2 touchdowns last game. Can you keep it going? Yeah, let's just look really quickly. Yeah, we don't necessarily look at touchdowns. I mean, he had 3 targets, 2 touchdowns on 3 targets. Will he do that again? No. Hasn't had more than 3 targets in a game this season. I think that's probably the baseline expectation, especially if Noel gets more slot snaps, which we hope, fingers crossed, happens. Again, he's low owned, right? So, and he has rapport with C.J. Stroud, so not the worst play in the world by any means. Sid says, is it okay to have 0 Seattle exposure in one lineup? Yeah, it is, especially if you go all in on that first game. Ed says, do you think Marks takes over? He kind of already has. He's never going to be the type of guy that gets like 75% of the workload based on his stature and his playing style. It's always going to be like a 50-50, 60-40 split. Depends on the game script tonight. If they're trailing more or this game is more closely contested, and it probably will be, at least compared to that Baltimore game pre-bye where they won by 1 billion points, Mark should have more opportunities than Nick Chubb tonight. Again, especially coming out of the bye. Maybe he gets a little bit more of a bump too. Sean says, you like Shepard or Tez tonight with Buka back in the mix? Yeah, Shepard's going to be the number 3. And Tez Johnson's availability, his routes run, are going to be directly tied to Egbuka's health. If Egbuka can't play a full complement of snaps because of his hamstring, Tez will benefit. If Egbuka's out there for most of his snaps, Tez won't see that many. D Pope says, Bucks D getting healthier? Yeah, for the most part. They get back Zion McCollum tonight, their other corner, so now they have a fully healthy secondary. Levante David is questionable. Nobody asked any questions in the Friday or Saturday press conference to Todd Bowles. So we think Levante David plays, their stud linebacker. We'll know here literally in seconds, I guess, once we get inactives. But yeah, they're mostly healthy. James says, why do you suggest not playing large field single entry for rookies? Because you have one lineup, and this isn't a shot at you, James. It's just the fact of the matter. If you're playing a 2,000 player GPP and you have one lineup, you have to beat 1,999 other players with one shot, right? Yes, everyone has the level playing field with one entry, but you still have 2,000 lineups that you have to beat. And we're playing for first. The payouts are so top heavy, right? In order to get a top 3 prize, if we just have an average expectation, we're getting a top prize of once every 600 tries in a single entry GPP of 2,000 players. That could take 2 to 3 years to realize that. So unless you're using them in a portfolio, you're playing a bunch of single entry GPPs, and then you can mix and match your portfolio, your diversification. That's fine. But just one single lineup, you're competing against too many players with just a single shot to get too many things right to need to get top 3 to have a real prize. Play smaller contests. Chris says Laporta Schultz builds seem okay, which means they're wrong. Yeah, I think that's where the field is going too, right? If we're playing 2 tight ends, these guys have. Let's go over to FanDuel actually. These guys have especially high ownership. Schultz at 5,200. So yeah, that actually this could be the low risk build over here. Who do we get with 7,300? Not Evans, but yeah, something like this I think will be popular as well. So good call there, Chris. Deshaun says, what about Cooper Kupp? Yeah, I'm not thrilled with how Cooper Kupp's targets have been. Let's just bring him up really quickly. He's going to be like regularly owned on DraftKings. He'll be so stupidly owned on FanDuel, which means he definitely scores a touchdown tonight. Just because of his points per dollar projection, his price tag. But I mean, this is not the same Cooper Kupp. The best game he had was against Pittsburgh, who refused to guard slot receivers and change their defense. Yeah, he caught the touchdown last week, first touchdown of the season. But I would look to be underweight on Cooper Kupp tonight. For sure. Russ says he's doing 7-man Detroit stacks. Yeah, we've seen 6-man stacks win large, massive contests before. So this could be a slate where it works. Sean says, do you like White or Walker on FanDuel? Yeah, I think by all indications, Rachaad White's the better play. 8,000, better projection, higher in our model. But let's go to running back. Kenneth Walker, cheaper and lower owned. So depends what you need. In a vacuum, I like Rachaad White better. What is considered a smaller contest? I mean, honestly, as small as you can get. I think the best example, I mean, it was literally the perfect example last night in Discord, was one of our members posted a screenshot of finishing in like 1,000th place and didn't double their money. And then another Occupy Fantasy Discord member had basically the same score on DraftKings in last night's showdown, but got first place out of 15 entries and got like 10x their money. And I've never seen a better example in back-to-back messages in our Discord. So literally as small as possible, right? I know you want to win big prizes, right? But if you just play a bunch of small contests, that it adds up. So I would say like 10 players, 15 players, 20 players. But realistically, what, like 100 players, 200 players? That's what we consider small. SF Niner says, Kupp is the man. You crazy. Look at his home stats against AFC opponents. Yeah, football is already a sample with only 16 games per season. And then we talk about half those plays are offense. You're already cutting down the sample dramatically, and it's just a bunch of noise typically, right? I could look over the course of NFL history. You're going to find guys who do well against specific opponents or whatever, or specific conferences or at home, and most of it's noise. Just by law of averages, someone's going to do it. It just so happens to be that guy. So yeah, maybe he scores a touchdown because of that tonight, but that won't be the reason. Malcolm says, what are the totals for each game? So it's like 51-52 for this Detroit-Tampa Bay game, and it's 41-42 for the Seattle-Houston game, so 10-point difference. Ownership is all going to be on the second defenses, Houston and Seattle, so the field understands that. Brandon says, we need people to pay the rake. I'm still blown away by the questions. Yep, rake is still always paid for every time, buddy. Let's see here. JPT, all the Lions passing game going through Laporta. Based on ownership, probably. He's the highest owned guy tonight at tight end. And yeah, we could certainly see it. Yeah, and he's affordable. So I think most of my Detroit stacks would include him, that's for sure. Sid says, do you like Marks? I do like Marks tonight. I think it's a perfect situation for him. Yeah, tough defense, but we need cheaper options. He should get a decent amount of passing down work. No Christian Kirk, so maybe that helps out another target or two to the running backs. All right, guys, we're at 5:35. We're just about at that time. Anyone seen inactives yet? I haven't seen inactives. Mario says, I'm assuming Woody Marks is pretty low owned. Yeah, low owned on DraftKings. I mean, like 15%, 20% maybe. He'll be higher owned on FanDuel because of how tight the pricing is over here. So he's actually high owned by our metrics on FanDuel. Percentage of people that will be playing Mike Evans. I'll bring up the model for you guys so we can see. I forget the exact ownership. This might change. We're going to update here shortly with the Igbuka news. But let's look at the model. We'll look at the Monday slate. We have Mike Evans at 54% on DraftKings, 49% on FanDuel. All right, everyone's saying inactives are out. Can someone post them in the chat so I can see them? We didn't talk about Showdown, by the way. I see a question from Sean, or from 2G, Too Great. Any Williams love in a captain for Showdown? Yeah, it's a tough Showdown slate. I don't mind a mid-range captain on DraftKings, or both sites for a Tampa Bay Detroit Showdown. So yeah, I don't mind it at all. Really tough to fit in the guys you want there. It's kind of similar to last night, just way more options. I do think JSN is matchup proof the way they've been using him and how good he's been playing Wig. So yeah, I think play him in any matchup. Otten or Tez Johnson? I would say Otten now. Tez relegated to wide receiver 4 with Igbuka back, assuming literally anyone of the 370 people watching us post inactives in the chat. Which team has the lowest priority plays? Probably Houston as the lowest team total on the slate. All right, I'll just have to look myself on my phone. Everyone keeps saying the inactives are out, but no one is actually posting them. So I will look myself. Let's just give a little look here. All right, let's see. Let's do a little search. Buccaneers inactives. And then while we wait, any other questions? Malcolm says Mayfield or Goff for DK Cash. Probably Goff. Let's look at the pricing just really quickly. I know our model likes Goff a little more. I would prefer the 600 savings. I mean, this could be a Mayfield explosion game for sure. I think Mayfield's going to project a little bit better, just slightly. But you might need the $600 savings. Either one are good cash options. All right, let's see. Bucks and actives, since no one will freaking post in the chat. Oh, thank you. Voga. All right, Bucky's out. Obviously, Godwin, Josh Williams. Yeah, so everyone's in. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for posting that. So, yeah, Igbuka is in. So, Igbuka's in. All the other receivers are in. So, now they have what? All these guys? Igbuka, Evans, Shepard, Tez, Cam Johnson, Ryan Miller. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 active wide receivers tonight. That's maybe another sign. I think they normally have 6 anyways, but yeah. I would go Evans tonight if we're picking between the two, just because his hamstring is likely fully healthier. For Detroit, Terry Arnold is out. I know someone else said Arnold's back. Arnold's not back. He's out still. Joseph, Maddox. Yeah, so there were no game time decisions for Detroit, so no surprises there. Yeah, and someone else is asking, pricing is tight. Better not to leave more than $100 on the table. Yeah, I mean, especially in cash games, low risk contests, and tournaments, GPPs. I would just say don't leave more than 1,000. Maybe 1,500 if you're playing the largest contest. But yeah, try to use most of the cap if you can tonight. Yeah, and as Mr. Miyagi says, Lions secondary, double skull emoji. Yeah, they're in trouble tonight, dude. No Brian Branch. No Kirby Joseph. No Terry Arnold. No Avante Maddox. I mean, they're playing dudes that they just signed a couple weeks ago. Wheels up for Baker. I mean, if you're trying to break a tie between Goff and Mayfield, the defensive injuries certainly lean towards Baker Mayfield being the better play. All right, guys, that'll do it. 40 minutes. Tons of water breaks. It's tough to talk for 40 straight minutes. Appreciate you guys joining, as always. Let's see. No London game this week, so that's great. But we'll still have our normal schedule. So I'll be back on Thursday with the normal pre-recorded video Thursday morning. Chris will be back Friday evening with the main slate video. Chuck will be here on Sunday afternoon for the Sunday night video, which you got, again, if you guys haven't been checking out, Chuck goes live, similar to this type of show, where he goes live Sundays before the Sunday night game to answer your questions for the showdown slates. And then I'll be back the following Monday. Thanksgiving's coming here soon. I know it seems crazy, but we'll have some short slates here. Maybe we'll get Jack back on the show. We have some lineup builder updates coming extremely soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Daily plugs up on the site, as is the projected ownership for every player on both sites. We will have the update within the next 5 to 10 minutes for this Egbuka news. It dropped right before I went live, so I didn't get a chance to tweak it myself, but we'll get that up here, and we'll get everything updated for you on the site. Any final questions, join us on Discord, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. We would love to have you. For Occupy and Brian, thanks for listening. Good luck and enjoy tonight's 2-game slate.